Now to Allan Bonner. He is a crisis management professional. He also ran an earthquake simulation in Tokyo a few years ago. He's joining us now from Toronto. So Allan, you know just how prepared they are, the Japanese, for this kind of thing. How ready were they?
Well, it's remarkable when you look in the trunk of a Canadian car in a snowstorm in the prairies or in northern Ontario, there's nothing in there. No extra clothing, no hats, no gloves, no emergency kit. But in Japan, the average Japanese person sleeps with shoes under his or her bed. Why? The minute an earthquake happens, the floor is covered with glass and you can't walk 2 steps without getting injured. They have a bit of food, a bit of water. They even have a bag of sand near the gas stove so that they can put out and smother a fire should one occur. So it's an extremely well-prepared jurisdiction right down to the individual school child.
Right, so that's at home. What about in the workplace? I mean, I read one account where they've got hard hats at the ready at any moment.
They have everything. Now, the reason I was retained to run an earthquake simulation is that about 10 years ago they considered statistically that they were overdue for a major earthquake. There's a quake about every week, a small one in Tokyo, and I've been in many of them. And the city has been destroyed 3 times in the 20th century, twice by quakes, once by war. And they thought, well, it's time to just test our systems. What we found, despite the excellent engineering, and there is a big debate about whether you prepare for a building to shake horizontally or vertically, once you get through the engineering, you get to the human factors: hubris, male ego, what academics call heuristics, where you can't move money around very well. You think you're going to have certain equipment that you don't have. In the earthquake simulation I ran, they broke their satellite phone and they tried to set up tents, you know, the kind of tents you get at Canadian Tire. Well, nobody could figure out how to set them up because they were distraught and it was an emergency. So you're going to find gaps when you run a simulation.
Right. So, I mean, you know, as you detailed, they live with this. They try to be as prepared as possible. What about here in Canada? Certainly, you know, along the West Coast, there were some tense moments in terms of how high the water levels may reach as a result of that tsunami making its way across the water. They didn't get, you know, nowhere near the kind of levels they were anticipating. But how prepared is the West Coast? Well,
not. I mean, we have to remember that much of what constitutes our major cities in North America were once underwater. Vancouver, San Francisco, Washington, New Orleans, many of these downtown areas, including in Toronto, were underwater. A small rise in the water level, let alone a 1 or 2 foot tsunami, can have devastating effects. We also have to remember we've had a tsunami in Newfoundland and Canada, we've had a tornado, we've had hurricanes, we have had these kinds of weather events, and we're not as well prepared as the Japanese are for their events.
So what do we learn? I mean, each time something like this, and certainly this is a huge magnitude quake and the tsunami, what can be learned from this, as tragic as it is?
Marvelous old book by the International Red Cross called Acts of God or Acts of Man, and it says, no, you know, there will be weather events, there will be unforeseen circumstances, but you don't have to build your residences in a floodplain. You don't have to build out of materials that are vulnerable to the kind of weather or seismic event that you're going to have. That these events don't fall out of the sky as if we've never had an earthquake before. You can prepare. And there's a great case study of a California company that spent a lot of money preparing. I believe it was a brewery. And they were paid back many, many fold when they could still sell their product despite, I believe, the Loma Prieta earthquake.
All right, Allan Bonner is a crisis management professional. He's joining us from Toronto on this. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.